Do you struggle to find the right words when you have to speak, even though you know what you might have to say? Due to the nature of my work, I'm surrounded by communication experts, and a lot of them have different theories, frameworks, practice material that helps a person organize their thinking and speak with clarity. And after learning these techniques from a lot of them, applying them myself and teaching it to other students, we found a few common patterns that universally tends to work for a lot of people to help articulate their thoughts and not blank out while speaking. And articulation is something I struggled with a lot. A lot of you guys watching this might struggle to articulate things that you might not be familiar with. I struggle to articulate the most basic concepts. In fact, years ago when I was in college and it was my first day, I remember they had asked me to introduce myself in front of the class, and the class had a small podium built in it. And I remember looking at the class representative and just having this look of, please don't send me out there. I do not want to go in front of people, because I did not know what to say in front of a class, even though all I had to say was my name and where I'm from. That's all, a 10-second thing to speak on. But there was a block between my mind and speech, and I couldn't articulate even the most basic thoughts. So if you want to avoid being like this, here's a 5-step process to help you organize your thinking and articulate your thoughts correctly. By the way, if you're new here, we tend to release communications content all the time. It's one skill that will help you no matter what career you choose. So subscribe for more videos like these. Now, when it comes to the first step of this process, we have to understand, why do we blank out in the first place? A lot of us think it's because of the fear of judgment, it's because we don't have the right vocabulary or whatever it might be. But the real reason is a lot more evolutionary, and it stems from something known as the fight or flight response. It means when there's some danger in front of us, we are either going to try and fight it or run away from it. Fight or flight. And when we are, let's say, in a meeting and our boss asks us to speak in front of all our colleagues, it's going to be difficult to speak up because we're put on the spot and our ego is in danger, which clicks in the fight or flight response. What we need to understand is, how do we curb this response as much as possible? For better or worse, these responses are involuntary. We all have them. It just depends at what capacity can you control them at. So the next 3 steps of the process will help you curb your fight or flight so that you can speak with a clear mind. And the best way to clear your mind is to shift your attention to your breathing, which is the second step to the process. Here we're going to follow a principle called as box breathing, which means if you visualize a box, think of a small circle going on one side of the box and then the other and then the other and then the other at equal proportions of time. So look at this animation over here. So as the circle keeps moving up, you want to take a breath in. You then want to hold that breath, breathe out completely, and finally hold the out breath. And then repeat the process. Box breathing is a foundational technique taught in yoga. It really helps to clear the mind, and it can become a part of your daily routine in the morning before you begin your day. From a communications perspective, this will help calm our mind and help curb the fight or flight response by allowing our mind to tell our body that, hey, everything's fine. Let's just calm down. The next step is the 2-second pause. When we are asked a question or we are asked to respond to something, we have this intuition to just speak up immediately. Even if we go on stage to give a presentation, as soon as we go in front of the crowd, we want to start speaking up. But remember, our mind has not adjusted to this new information or this new environment. In those cases, when you're asked a question or when you go on stage, curb the response to speak immediately. Instead, just absorb what you've been asked or what you've been told to respond to. Give your mind 2 seconds and then start speaking. The reason we do this is because 2 seconds is enough time for your mind to gather information, and it will give you a much higher chance to structure it and hence speak out in a more articulate fashion. Some people have a challenge with this, that they feel, if I pause for 2 seconds, will the other person feel like I don't know what I'm saying? If somebody cannot even give you 2 seconds to respond, the problem is generally on them. So take your time, because your listener will appreciate you to think and speak as opposed to speaking with hastiness. The 4th step in the process is to reduce your WPM. WPM stands for words per minute. The more words you use every minute, the faster you go, and vice versa. Now, if you're a naturally fast speaker like me, you might tend to rush through things without even knowing that you're pacing. And when we do that, our mouth is going faster than our mind. And hence we struggle with articulation, we tend to blank out, and our communication is just not that effective. So going slower is going to be a lot better. And if you're already a slow speaker, you can skip this part. But if you're fast, you want to practice in a more exaggerated fashion. And how do you do that? Just go on Google and get a random paragraph from any article and just read that article normally. put a timer on and read until you reach 2 minutes. And make sure you're reading it out loud. Whatever portion you've read, it will just mark it at that point itself. Now go back and reread the article. So let's say if you read about 400 words in those 2 minutes, you want to now try and read just 150 words in those 2 minutes. So you want to try and reduce it by more than 50%. When you read it in this particular fashion, it's going to be very uncomfortable because you're going to go much slower than you're comfortable with. But that's completely fine. After we practice this repeatedly and get into an actual conversation, our ability to speak with a lower WPM will sound a lot more natural. So these three things will help you to curb the fight or flight response. But most importantly, we need a certain framework that will help us speak with much more clarity. Now, there are many different frameworks that help you organize your thinking. Today, I'm going to show you a framework called CARE-C. It stands for context, answer, reason, example, and conclusion. So whenever you're asked to speak on something and you are blanking out in terms of, oh, how do I start? How do I end? Start by building context, then give your response, which is the answer. Follow it up with a logical reason, give an example, and then conclude with whatever you just said. Let's look at this through an example itself. For instance, if you're asked to speak on a topic like, hey, what solutions do you propose to address productivity issues for remote workers? You can start by building up the context. As we continue with our remote work setup, I've observed several productivity challenges that are affecting our team's efficiency. These challenges include communication gaps, distractions at home, and difficulties in maintaining a structured workday. To address these productivity issues, I would propose implementing a combination of structured communication practices, regular check-ins, and promoting a balanced work environment with clear boundaries. This is because structured communication practices such as scheduled daily stand-ups and the use of project management tools ensure that everyone stays informed and aligned with their tasks. Regular checkups help maintain accountability and provide opportunities for team members to voice concerns or seek any help. And promoting a balanced work environment with clear boundaries between work and personal time can reduce distractions and improve focus. For example, in my previous role, we faced similar challenges when shifting to remote work. And when we introduced daily stand-up meetings using video calls, it helped to keep the team connected and aware of each other's progress. We also use project management tools like Trello and Slack to track these tasks and facilitate any sort of communication. This helped to draw clear boundaries and have a better work-life balance while improving the output of work. So overall, by implementing structured communication practices, regular check-ins, and a more balanced environment, we can address these productivity issues in our remote work setup. And that's the 5-step process on how you can reduce blanking out and articulate your thoughts with clarity. However, I told you one framework called CARE-C, but there are many more frameworks which apply to different situations. CARE-C cannot apply to every communication aspect out there. But don't worry, we've created an entire video on 5 different mental models or frameworks that you can apply to reduce your chances of blanking out. You can check out that whole video right here.